This is a presentation on factoring the greatest common factor from polynomials by Mathematically Marcia. Okay, when you are factoring the greatest common factor out, the first step is to find your greatest common factor. So we will start by looking at our numbers. So we have a 3, a 6, and a 9. So the greatest common factor of 3, 6, and 9 would be a 3. Next, we want to look at our letters. We have an x cubed, an x squared, and we have an x. And the smallest exponent on the x's is x to the first. So that's what we use for our greatest common factor, because they all have at least one in common. And then we take and we divide each term by that common factor. So we keep the common factor outside the parentheses. Right here, the 3's cancel. X cubed, 3 minus 1 is x squared, plus 6 divided by 3 is 2. 2 minus 1 is 1, so that would be x, minus, the x's cancel. 9 divided by 3 is 3. And then do a quick check inside your parentheses to make sure you don't still have a common factor. If you do, you did not choose the greatest common factor. And then that would be the factored form. On this next example, we're going to first of all, again, look for the greatest common factor, and we will look at our numbers. And we have a 12, 6, and 18. So the largest number that goes into 12, 6, and 18 would be a 6. Now let's look at our first letter, which would be the x's. So we have an x squared, an x, and an x cubed. The smallest exponent is x, so that's the one we include in our greatest common factor. Now let's look at the y's. We have a y cubed, a y squared, and a y to the fourth. For the y's, the smallest exponent is y squared. So my greatest common factor is 6x y squared. You'll now go down and divide each term by 6x y squared. And remember, if it helps, these x's that don't have exponents, you can put a 1 there as a reminder that when there's no number or no exponent, we assume it's a 1. Alright, so 12 divided by 6 is 2. For the x's, 2 minus 1 is 1. And for the y's, 3 minus 2 is 1. So 2xy. For this next term, everything cancels. That doesn't mean the term goes away. It means it is 1. Because remember, any number or any letter, any expression divided by itself always equals 1. Then for the next term, 18 divided by 6 is 3. For the x's, 3 minus 1 is 2, so that's x squared. For the y's, 4 minus 2 is 2. And then we need to remember to include our GCF at the beginning. Quick check, make sure you don't have common factors still, and you don't. So that is the factored form of our expression. Alright, let's look at this next example. Again, we want to start by trying to find our greatest common factor, our GCF. So we'll look at our numbers. We have an 8, 16, and 24. And the smallest number, or the biggest number that will go into 8, 16, and 24 is 8. And since our first term is negative, let's go and divide by -8. Because we like it when that first term is positive. Okay, now let's look at the x's. You have an x squared, an x cubed, and another x squared. So they all have x's, and the smallest exponent is x squared. So we will include an x squared. Then let's look at the y's. Here we have a y squared, and here we have a y. But this first term doesn't have a y, which means they do not all have a y in common. So we do not include y in our greatest common factor. And then let's look at the z's. We have a z to the fourth, a z cubed, and a z cubed. They do all have z's. And the smallest exponent for the z's is 3. So we'll have a z cubed in our GCF. Now we need to go through and divide each term by that GCF. Alright, let's go ahead and write our GCF in the beginning. Alright, so for your first term, the 8's cancel, the x's cancel, and then for the z's, 4 minus 3 is 1. Remember, we don't need to write the exponent 1 because it's assumed. We know there's a 1 there. And then notice it's a positive z because negative divided by negative is a positive. For the second term, we have a positive 16 divided by -8, which is actually a -2. For the x's, 3 minus 2 is 1, so you have 1x. Y squared with nothing to cancel any of them. And the z's will cancel completely. Then the last term, -24 divided by -8 is +3. The x's cancel completely. You have the y on top, and the z's cancel completely. Quick check, make sure we didn't miss any common factors, and we didn't. And this is my factored form. Okay, this next example, let's look for our GCF again. And looking at the letters, you have a 2, a 3, and a 6. And there is not a number that will go into 2, 3, and 6. So let's go on to our letters. We have an x squared, and we have an x, and the last one doesn't have an x, so they don't have x in common. So we will move on to the next one. Look at your y's. We have a y, and a y squared. They do all have a y, and the smallest exponent is y to the first, or just y. And then let's check the z's. We have a z here, and we have a z squared. The first term doesn't have a z. That means the y is our only common factor. So that's our GCF. So we'll go and divide each term by y. So you have y. The y's cancel, so 2x squared plus the y's cancel. 3xz minus 6, and then y squared divided by y is just y z squared. And that is our factored form. Okay, on this last example, we're going to again look for the GCF first. So our numbers, we have a 3, a 6, and a 9. 3, 6, and 9 are all divisible by 3. Now we'll check our letters. You see we have an x here, but that's the only x. so that's not a common factor. We have a y here, that's the only y, so it's not a common factor. And we have a z here, which is the only z, so it's not a common factor. So 3 is the only common factor. And so now we're going to divide everything by that common factor of 3. And that gives me x plus 2y minus 3z. If you have any questions, comments, requests for future videos, comment below and share your thoughts. Also, subscribe to my channel to see more videos like this. And hit that like button if you liked it. Thank you for watching.